10 truths about winning with life and some money.
Brian, I am so excited about this show because these are the core tenets. These are the 10 things that you and I have talked about. If we had to tell people, you need to know this, whether it's a young person, a middle-aged person, an older person, hey, here's some truths that you ought to know about money that also connect and relate to doing well and winning in life. These will be those things. And we get to kind of lay those out today.
Well, I love that the show's been on a little bit of a tear. Mm-hmm. And it's been great. We've picked up a ton of new viewers, subscribers. I mean, I think we've done 4 million views in the last 28 days, which is pretty incredible. So I know a lot of you are brand new. So we felt like it was great to catch everyone up. Let's just go ahead and cover the 10 truths about money as well as life. Because you know us, with the Money Guy treatment, we like to go beyond just what happens with your wallet and your purse. And we're going to start off with a heavy one. Let's talk about the 3 ingredients to wealth creation.
That's right. We think when it comes to building wealth, when it comes to creating wealth, there are 3 core ingredients that are required. And those ingredients are discipline, money, and time. Brian, explain what each one of those are.
Yeah, let's talk about discipline. First of all, if you can't live on less than you make, you will never be able to build the margin that turns into the money that gets invested, and then you mix in that money with time, and voila, you get some wealth.
That's right. We were talking about, and you have to combine the components. It's almost, you can think about like discipline times money times time equals wealth. And what's beautiful about this equation, if you think of it in that aspect, is maybe you don't have as much time because you figured this out later in life. Well, if you have less time, you can increase the discipline, or you can increase the money, or maybe you have tons of time because you're a young person, but you have very little money. The equation still works. It's like squeezing a balloon. You have to understand where you are in your wealth building journey and how you can impact each one of these ingredients.
Yeah, the hardest one to kind of start with is the discipline, because we live in an instant gratification world. But if you can understand, man, if I can manage and start understanding the power of investing just that little bit for that great, big, beautiful tomorrow, it will be the superpower that lets you unlock the money combined with the time and really do some incredible things in your financial life.
And we're going to talk a little bit later on about what does that actually turn into. As I build wealth, as I build financial independence, what does that turn into? So you might be thinking, okay, well, I've got this figured out. I understand these 3 ingredients and I have the discipline, but what do I do with it? Like I grew up and I just heard, okay, I should live on less than I make. So what? So what? So what? What does that mean? Well, we actually have a tool. If you're brand new, you've never been here before, you've never seen this before, we have the financial order of operations. You can think of it as an instruction manual for your dollars. When it comes to saving your next dollar, where should it go and how should I approach wealth building? This will likely keep you on track to make sure that you're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, let's so that's the first one. We came out hot with the 3 ingredients to wealth. A lot of people are processing that, but let's talk about something that you need to hear early so that your journey can keep going. Debt is a chainsaw. And I'm talking about the shrillest, loudest version that scares the heebie-jeebies out of you at every haunted house that comes around Halloween season. You need to be very, very careful about using any form of debt.
Yeah, Brian, this is a Brian Preston-ism I'm about to pull out. You always say, if you're not scared, you're doing it wrong. If you're not approaching it with caution and apprehension, then you're not doing it correctly, because debt can be devastating to your financial life. Now, that does not mean, and our opinion is not, that you don't ever have debt and you should avoid debt at all costs and debt is purely evil. But when used incorrectly, it is not a good thing when it comes to building wealth.
Yeah, I think that's the problem that people have missed. I mean, everybody in the room is using some form of debt because it's just a part of the financial system. But what I see is we come to, in this consumer society, we become very flippant with how we use debt. We're not scared of it. We don't respect it. We don't understand how powerful of a thing it is and how it can pull you down into depths and turn compounding interest, which is actually your superpower to building wealth and success. It actually turns it upside down to where it works against you. And that's the biggest thing we're trying to protect you from.
Yeah, debt often, when you think about its purest form, it's supposed to be a bridge, right? A lot of us, when we go to buy our first home, we might not have enough dollars to buy the home outright. So we utilize debt in order to be able to purchase that home and pay it off over time. But far too often, people think of debt as a bridge, but it actually becomes a bridge to trouble as opposed to a bridge to opportunity. You had mentioned compounding interest, Brian. Let's talk about the dark side of compounding interest and just how negative and scary it can be if you don't take it seriously. So think about this. Let's say that you are a 22-year-old right now and you're making the minimum monthly payment. We know the average credit card balance in this country right now is $5,910. That's not the average credit card usage. That's the average amount that's carried over month for credit card users. Well, if you look at the average interest rate that people pay on credit cards right now,
that's what's freaking me out. Look how high that number is now.
It's 20.77%. Could you imagine if you had an investment that was yielding to you 20.77% a year? You'd never get rid of it.
Yeah, that would be to the moon. I mean, that would be such an exciting thing. But that is what people who are using credit cards inappropriately, because remember, credit card use is okay. Credit card debt, no way, because there's no way you'll ever be ahead if you're paying close to 21% annual interest. That's just don't fake it until you make it. That's a disaster. It's just not going to work for you.
And this is why it's so bad. Most credit cards the contracts are written in such a way that the required minimum payment is usually somewhere between $25 or 3% of the outstanding balance. So if you think about someone who went to purchase something that cost $5,910 and they just start making the minimum payment until they get it paid off, they will actually, over the life of that loan, pay interest of $7,343. That means that nearly $6,000 thing that they purchased cost them over $13,000, and it took them 17 years to pay it off. Now, I don't know what this $6,000 thing they bought was, but odds are they're not even using it 17 years in the future. So it's crazy if you allow debt to work in that way. But you guys are financial mutants. You think about this the other way. Let's talk about what the real cost of it, because $7,300 in interest is a cost, but it's not the real cost. What if instead that minimum monthly payment was saved and invested for retirement? Well, what's really, really interesting is by the time that credit card was paid off, by the time you hit that 17-year mark, you would have $45,000 saved up. We're assuming you can earn 10% on that. So instead of paying off something you purchased 17 years ago, you actually have $45,000 working for you.
Yeah, here's the thing I think is interesting. Remember, this is approximately $13,000. If you take what you spent around $6,000 plus strapped on with what we had calculated the interest carry cost if you're just making the minimum payments, and we cut the interest in half from what the credit card companies are saying. So that's about where the S&P 500 has been. But here's what's interesting. You already see, all right, if we were actually working with compounding interest instead of letting it work against us, because this is a disaster if you were working against us, that's only part of the story. Because that money, if you just let it work until retirement, it turns into something else. What does the value of time actually do to this, Bo?
By 65, if you just let that $45,000 that had built up, if you just let it continue to grow all the way out until age 65, it could be worth nearly $600,000. As a reminder, the minimum payment you were paying on the credit card equaled $13,000. So for you, for a 22-year-old that starts saving, if you save $13,000, it has the potential by 65 to turn into $600,000. So you have to ask the question, what's more valuable to me? That $6,000 shiny thing that I want to buy and pay for with debt, or $600,000 of future dollars that I can use for a great big beautiful tomorrow?
I love this because this is a great segue into the next one that I want to talk about, is because I want you to think about what every dollar has the potential to become. When I talk about your army of dollar bills, here's what we're going to say for number 3 is your money should work harder than you do. If you already know consumption cost can explode up to where credit card debt of $6,000 could be worth to your retired self $600,000. It's going to change your worldview on what the potential of every dollar is. But let's talk about this now from an investment standpoint, how we make your army of dollars work harder than you can with your hands, your back, or your brain.
You know, you guys see it all the time. We drink these drinks on the show, and we have these koozies that says, you know, this $1 beer cost me $88. It's because we understand the concept that $1 today invested can turn into $88 in the future if you put that money to work. Well, we thought it'd be interesting to look at this from a slightly different perspective, showing that if your goal were to build to $1 million, starting at different ages and different savings amounts, how much of that $1 million is actually represented by the growth of your dollars, not the behavior yourself. I'll start with a 20-year-old. If you're a 20-year-old and you want to save $1 million by the time you get to 65, you save $95 a month to do that. Well, by the time you get to 65, you have $1 million saved up. Of that $1 million, almost $950,000 of it is growth, is earnings, is investment return. You only had to save $51,000 of that million. It's remarkable. Your money worked way harder than you had to work.
Yeah, this is one, I mean, when you look at these numbers, because I know a lot of you are either exercising or you're driving, so you don't get to see the visual, so I want to make sure I do this justice. That's for the 20-year-old. 95% of the account value is actually coming from the growth of the assets, not your contributions. For the 30-something, because that's still an incredible, if you start it by age 30, which most of you financial mutants have, 89% of the final account value is still the growth, not your contribution. It's the money growing upon itself with compounding. 40-year-old, 77%. Even for a 50-year-old, 55% of your account value at retirement is still coming from the growth, not your contribution.
I think it's important to pause there. What's so remarkable, people all the time say to us, man, guys, I wish I would have found you 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. Oh, I feel like I missed an opportunity. Oh, look at what a 50-year-old can do. Just from age 50 to age 65, if you can be disciplined, if you can put your money to work, there is still a huge growth opportunity and potential for you to build retirement dollars. So just because you didn't start yesterday doesn't mean that you can't start right now today.
Now, I do want to caution you on one quick thing, and I won't spend a ton of time on this, but I talk all the time about boiling point. It's because, look at this, a lot of people will hear this slide and say, I want to get that 95% growth. And you're all in on that, and you start investing. You go to Fidelity.com, you go to Vanguard, you go to Charles Schwab, and you set up your index target retirement to do a monthly investment into a Roth or something else. But then I think you're going to look at this 5 years in the future and you're going to be like, man, I feel like the majority of my account value, the lion's share, is still what I put into this. Where's all this growth, this 95% growth these guys were talking about? This is what I'm talking about. We all know that water does not boil until it gets to 212 degrees Fahrenheit. And it pretty much, a watch pot, is just sitting there and you're like, where's all this energy that's supposed to happen that creates this explosive growth? It's working under the surface. The first 10 years are going to feel like a grind. Yep. And I just need to go ahead and prepare you. When you set it and forget it with your inevitable automatic wealth creation, don't expect to see magical stuff the first 10 years. The gigantic growth is going to occur when we get into 15, 20, 25 years. I know that sounds crazy, but that is the way wealth creation starts. We know the stats. 28 years is how long it takes the typical millionaire to build wealth. The average age is 49. I'm not trying to deter you. I'm just saying, in this world where we've lost our attention span, stay patient, stay focused. This is the work that builds wealth without the shortcuts or the traps that everybody's fallen into.
So how do you do this? You make it simple. You make it automatic. Start somewhere. Just get something working for you. We get this question all the time. Guys, I hear that you say I should be saving 25%, but there's no way I can save 25%. What's the minimum amount I can save and still be okay? And the answer is something. Just start saving something. If all you can do is save $10 a month right now, start doing it. Figure out how to get to 15, and then to 20, and then to 50, and then to 100, and you will be amazed. As you start to reach that bowling point, you will see that the dollars get so exciting if you just give it time.
Did you say bowling point?
No, I didn't do
just
that.
to pick on me.
No,
You're so mean.
I didn't do that. All right, let's talk about the fourth one, because this one is a really important one that often gets overlooked. We think if you really want to think about how to win with money and at the same time win in life, you ought to really consider, am I choosing the right occupation? Is the thing that I'm doing for a living really the thing that I ought to be doing so that I don't have the Sunday scaries every week?
Look, the content team, sometimes I feel for them. I don't know if I should wish there's a camera in there or if I feel like there should be counseling afterwards. It's because I'll go on tirades about how much I love education, but I get mad at education because education was the ladder that I feel like has taken me from, the lower income family life I came from to where I am now. I put it all squarely on the shoulders of having parents that valued education and then me going to college and making it all happen. So when now I see all the struggles with student loans and the runaway costs, it breaks my heart because we've turned something so positive into a negative. So what I want to be crystal clear on is that what you've got to start doing, and I hate that we've taken something so positive to now where we have to put a buyer beware warning on it, is that really you have to find that intersection of your passion, your knowledge and aptitudes/talents, but also where the market is, meaning is there an actual value in the marketplace for what you're learning at college? So we wanted to kind of walk through why you need to be very deliberate with your education and occupation choices because it has a huge impact to your earning potential.
Yeah, think about this. Realistically, if you're a full-time worker, and you have 2 weeks off of paid time, you work 2,000 hours per year. Well, if you think about extrapolating that over a 45-year career, that's 90,000 hours that you're going to spend doing this thing. So you might want to say, if I'm going to spend 90,000 hours doing this thing, man, it's something that I enjoy. It's something that I find fulfilling. It's something that I can at least feel great about doing. And yet, when we look at the statistics, it's not necessarily the case. We know that right now, 44% of job seekers with degrees regret the field of study. So the thing that they went to school for, to go find a job for, they say, man, I wish I wouldn't do that. And only 27% of graduates right now actually work in the field of study that they went into. So I graduated with a degree in this, yet the vocation I'm pursuing is this. There seems to be a high misalignment there.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If you go to college without kind of being very deliberate with what the purpose, what the why, begin with the end in mind, a lot of people are just coming out on the other side with, yes, a degree, but a degree that might not be helping them get into that first job, a degree that they actually bear a lot of regret about. And this is what's interesting. There's a stark contrast because we measure and actually talk to our millionaires. We do an annual survey of our millionaire clients, and we find the exact opposite is that actually 72% of our clients work in their field of study. So you've got to be very deliberate with how you're allocating your time and your resources to make sure that it's helping you maximize your occupation. And then here's a key point that goes with the happiness factor. Is that I didn't like when we showed that stat of 90,000 hours. I tried to lobby for getting it taken out in the content meeting because I was like, it's pessimistic. If we had to consume our entire working career and think about it in hours, that just sounds like it's just negative. It's not my feel good rock and roll type personality. But here's what will make all that digest much better. If you do something that you actually love coming to do, you really do. It's that whole adage, you're not working a day in your life. And that's what, so if you're going to take that negative element of 90,000 hours, let's at least find something that's fulfilling, that gives you purpose when you wake up in the morning, you feel like you're making the world a better place. Let's see if we can get all that aligned up, and a lot of it is just being a good resource allocator and choosing the right occupation.
I love it. And I just want you to know, if I get to do this for 90,000 hours, if I could just hang out with you talking money for 90, that's gonna be a solid career.
Well,
I'm gonna be pretty happy about that.
30-year mark? I mean, it's so crazy. And I'm rocking and rolling and ready to go. So that's got to mean something. So I just hope everybody has the same type of journey and figure it out yourself through going through the intersection, once again, of your talents, the market, and then the tools that you're loading yourself up with.
And so you've probably put together like, okay, why is this important? It's because of the very next truth we want to share with you. Time is your most valuable resource, no matter where you are at in your life cycle. If you're 22 years old, time is one of your most valuable resources. If you're 65-year-old, time is still your most valuable resource because it is not renewable, it is fleeting, and it is expensive if you don't pay attention to it.
Yeah, I mean, Bo, you came up with this next thing. Let's go and say this because now I want to give some life lessons. What's the new headline?
Yeah, so when we think about it, in all reality, wasting time is actually way more expensive than wasting money. Let that sink in. Let yourself think about what that means. If I squander my time, I don't get to go back and fix that. I don't get to go back and make that up. And likely it's going to make my future time even more difficulty. If I waste some money, if I don't start saving the way that I should, yeah, I can go solve for that. I can't solve for wasted time. So we should approach the decisions that we make in that same vein.
I wanted to put this in context of owning your life and the fact that I've been there's seasons of my life, especially when I got out of college, $1,000 would have changed my life.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
It literally would have changed my life. I used to daydream about it when you'd hear about a friend who got like gifts at Christmas or something. You're like, man, if I just could get, if I could find $1,200, listen to the radio things. Back when I used to listen to radio, call-in shows with giving out paying bills and, you're doing that stuff. And I think about that. And because at that moment in time where $1,000's going to change your life, I'm a servant to all the things I'm obligated to, making my rent payment, making my monthly bills. I am a servant. I don't actually own my time. I'm indentured to have to go to work to sell my time and labor to pay the bills. The whole purpose of you trying to build financial independence is the moment that you can build up your assets, your army of dollar bills, to where now you trade a portion of your assets to actually either pay your expenses or to hire somebody to do something for you. Now you own your time. You own your life. That is what we're trying to do, because now you work and you do use your labor because you desire to, not out of the servant's obligation to all the people you're indebted to and all those things. That's the biggest thing, because I have found in my life as I reached this financial freedom point, I still love working. Working is still, don't mishear me. I'm not saying work is a bad thing. I'm just saying now you get to do it on your terms. I do stuff that is purposeful. I invest in things not for the money side of it but actually for where I'm hoping things will go. That is a huge clarifier we need to know, and that's why you have to understand time is the most valuable resource, not even just from the work standpoint, but also memory standpoint. Do things on your terms.
So you have to be intentional and goal-oriented when you think about your time and resources, meaning, do you have a plan? We say this all the time at our firm at Abound Wealth, that the financial plan that you have in place is both your best offense as well as your best defense. It is the thing that makes sure you don't get off track, wasting time, at least when it comes to your financial resources. So do you have a plan? Have you sat down and said, okay, these are my goals. These are the things that I want to accomplish. Okay, here's where I am right now. What are the steps that I need to put in place to move towards that goal? And as I have that plan in place, when other things come up, ooh, I want to do a pool. Does that move me to my goal or away from my goal? Ooh, I want to buy the new fancy car. Okay, do you like luxury cars? Does that move me towards my goal or does that move me away from my goal? If you have a financial plan in place, it will better allow you to make sure that you're not wasting time and resources as you move towards those goals.
Yeah, I mean, write down. Don't skip go. Just hit pause or do whatever and write down, what do you want to accomplish in a year? What do you want to accomplish in 5 years? What do you want to accomplish in 10 years? And even do the exercise of saying, hey, let's pretend I won the lottery. What would change in my life 5 years, 10 years? And then try to figure out what actually, where's the purpose, where's the value? And then get to work on creating that offense, that plan. Actually write it down so that you can reach the success instead of just daydreaming about where you want to be in life.
It's not just, don't just take our word for it. We know that Stephen Covey in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he says that to begin with the end in mind means to start with a clear understanding of where you're going. That's having a plan, not wasting time. We know from Millionaire Next Door, when they ask about, okay, what set up millionaires to make them successful, they allocate their time and their energy and their money efficiently in ways conducive to building wealth. They recognize the valuable resource that it is, and they don't squander it. And Brian, they don't get lost on this next point. They don't get caught up in our next truth.
And this is a big one. I think a lot of us will come out hot, and especially if you're watching this content in your 20s, you're going to get excited. You're going to hopefully start putting that money to work. But number 6 is the Joneses, who let these people move in, are broke, because this is the problem. You get all excited in your 20s, you get in your 30s, you get that first home, or we're hoping that the market allows you to get your first home, because I know that's difficult right now. But no matter what the case is, you're going to find out somehow in your 30s that high school started all over again, is that the goalposts are shifting. Comparison is still a real thing. And that's where I want people to understand Don't try to compare your goals and your journeys to other people's. Comparison is the thief of joy. You need to figure out what is your purpose? What is your why? What are you doing with this tool of money? And don't get caught up in just trying to keep up with what everybody else around you is doing.
Now, Brian, I'm curious if you have this same thought. Now, I grew up super, super poor, right? Like I grew up like very, very sort of bottom end on the socioeconomic status. And the Joneses were like this theoretical thing, right? Like they were like, oh, these are these people. Maybe if I was watching Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, I got to see the Joneses. I do feel like it's so sad in the society that we live today. The Joneses are in our fingertips all day long, and we're just scrolling, seeing it. And we allow all the things we see on social media, all the highlight reels we see people putting up, we begin to think that should be reality. Oh, I'm a 25-year-old, and now I don't need to drive this car. I need to drive that car. I need to wear those clothes. I need to travel to that place. And I feel like we have an unrealistic expectation of really who the Joneses are and if the Joneses are even real.
Yeah, I do think this has been amplified with social media. It's one of those things where it's definitely for the worse. I have shared on a previous show. I didn't realize that I grew up lower middle class to even periods of poverty when my dad lost his job in his 40s until I got to college. I mean, that's when I got around real rich people, and I was like, whoa,
wow, this is different.
Wow, these people got money. Because I even watching 90210 as a kid on TV, but hey, we live in a 4-bedroom house. With 3 bathrooms. What I wasn't thinking is that one of the bathrooms was off my dad's shop in the basement where he worked on cars that he had self-installed with like a sink that's covered in grease and everything else. And then the bedroom was just something that had that wood paneling my dad had slapped over the studs in the basement. So it was just the thing is that it's funny if you don't know any better. It is that comparison part is the bad part, because I grew up just everybody around me in my neck of the woods was also in the same state we were, same struggle. So it was all happiness was still there.
Yep.
It wasn't until I got to college I got to see everybody. Now you're right. Social media has made it where it doesn't matter where you live. Somebody's going to show you what they think you should see. I mean, look at all the TV trends, not to pick on the Kardashians and all that, but it is one of those things. That's not reality. That's why we try to give you the content to know what is reality so you don't let that comparison trying to keep up mess you up in your journey.
I love, Brian, that you said what is reality, because a lot of times what we think is true and what is actually true do not align. We have a false sense of reality. And this next financial truth I think is really interesting, what I think a lot of people get wrong. A lot of people think that in order to be wealthy, you have to have been born into it. In order to have financial wherewithal, in order to have resources, your parents or grandparents had to do so. And the fact of the matter is, that's just not the case. The vast majority of wealthy people don't inherit their wealth.
Yeah, this is one I grew up with. I grew up in a household where a lot of, I don't know if it was called jealousy or frustration, was that those wealthy people, they're born into it. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I started doing taxes. I graduated with an accounting degree, started doing taxes. I remember calling my parents, but Mom, Dad, these people pay a lot of taxes. I mean, so it's not, but that's taxes. But also, what I found from the research, when I also, in that same time I got my first accounting job, I got The Millionaire Next Door, I got The Wealthy Barber, and I started seeing research that was whispering in my ear and saying, no, a lot of these people, the stats show around 80% of millionaires are first generation. And that was pretty exciting. When I saw that, I was like, wait a minute. So I could do this. I
could be in that population.
I could do this. And it even expanded because I gave you the 80%. That's 1996 that we had The Millionaire Next Door kind of come out. But go back, Dr. Stanley's daughter, Sarah, came out and she wrote a book called The Next Millionaire Next Door. That came out a few years ago. She actually did the research, expanded it back to the 1800s. The stat was around 84% for first generation. And then Ramsey Solutions did their own huge study of millionaires, and they found that the number was around 79%. I saw a clip recently came across. Dave had, if you took into account the people who had inherited less than like $10,000 and the people who had made $1 million already before they inherited, the number goes actually up closer to 90%. Wild. And then our own millionaire study, now realize we used a very low threshold. If you had inherited anything up to $10,000, we kind of took you out on this, but our data was 74% in our most recent or self-made. I think people need to hear that
Yep.
because we hear constantly the system is rigged against you. You can't do this. And that's why between the financial order of operations, between the money multiplier, everything we're trying to do is to show you, look, don't listen to the negativity. Just use today to do something positive because you can do it. You can be the first person that does this and change your life, change your family's life, and just start making something happen today.
I love it. How your journey started does not define how it ends. So don't fall into the trap of other people telling you that is the case. If you want to be wealthy and you live here in this country, it is possible. It is available to you. You just got to figure out those 3 ingredients of wealth creation and start moving towards that.
I think the next one, the next one is so important. Teaching your children about financial success matters because we just made through the research point that 80% of millionaires are first generation, meaning that their parents, they're the first ones to make the 7-figure mark. That stat is only true if you understand that by the time the kids inherit the money, 70% of them go broke. And then by the time the grandkids inherit the money, 90% of them are run it. That's how this cycle renews itself. It's just this constant churn of wealth. And that's something, so if you are a person that's on your journey of building wealth, I got to tell you, teach the kids well so that you don't follow into that horrible stat. I hope my daughter falls into the 30% that doesn't blow through everything I've created in this lifetime. And then her children will hopefully be part of that 10% that are the exception to the rule because all of our peers have a very dysfunctional relationship with how money works and wealth creation.
What I love about this truth, Brian, is it should say, if I was going to reframe the name of the slide, it'd say, teaching your children about financial success matters for both you and for them, because it's really, really interesting. When we think about Dr. Stanley's work, when he wrote The Millionaire Next Door, and he talked about these 7 factors of wealth, there were 2 that immediately stick out. Number 4, their parents did not provide them economic outpatient care, meaning the parents were not giving money to the kids to subsidize their life. The kids kind of had to figure it out on their own. But look at the flip side of this. Number 5, their adult children are economically self-sufficient because they didn't receive help from their parents. They created kids that aren't also looking for help from them. It's a beautiful cycle if you can create the wealth cycle the right way, that then you can do really, really remarkable things. But it has to start early. If you have young children, it is not too early to start teaching them about money. If you have older children that maybe are getting in high school or maybe getting ready for college, it's not too late to start teaching them about money. But what you want to make sure you do is you want to be the one having the conversation with them, because if you let society, if you let social media, if you let the world around them teach them about money, they're going to teach them about credit cards and debt and borrowing and the hottest trend and the latest style and consumption. That's not the lesson you want your kids receiving. So you be an agent to teach the next generation how to continue that on.
Yeah, and I've shared, my daughter turned 15, my oldest turned 15. We started doing, just like your employer primes the pump with a dollar for dollar match or 50 cents on the dollar, you can do the same thing with your children. As they start working and they start coming into money, use that as a tool to say, hey, can you allocate a portion to savings and get a free match to turbocharge that? It has worked incredibly well with my oldest, and I hope you too will employ that behavior as you're working through it as well. But I know we're kind of closing now. These last 2 ones are more philosophical. And number 9 is money's a tool, not a goal.
Yeah, there's no order of importance, right? These are just 10 truths. This isn't like a countdown top 10. But I think this is one of the most important ones, because I think that so often on our financial journey, we lose sight of this. All of a sudden, money becomes a goal. I want to be a millionaire so that I want my income to hit this number so that, and it starts to become, I forget about the so that's and the whys behind it, and I start just pursuing the money. Well, if you try to just chase money as your destination, you are going to find that it is incredibly empty, that it is not what you are chasing. What money should be is a tool to help you achieve the things in life that truly matter to you. If you lose sight of that, you're chasing something that you're never, ever going to catch, because 100,000 won't be enough. And then 500 won't be enough. And then 1,000,000 won't be enough. And then and you will keep, you say it all the time, Brian, you will keep moving the goalpost farther along. Recognize it is supposed to be a tool, something that you can use. It is not the end goal itself.
Well, I worry people because I think all of us humans, we have a tendency to create these false structures in our brains of how things are going to work. So I think a lot of you, if your goal is I'm just going to build $2 million and it's going to solve all my problems, it reminds me, I've fallen in these same traps. This is not a complete perfect example, but you'll know what I mean. I didn't exactly have the greatest dating life in high school, but I thought when I turned 16 and got my first car, the ladies were going to show up. I had this false premise. I just thought cars, and that was what was keeping me from my happiness and dating scene was not having a vehicle. So as soon as I turned 16 and I buy this car, I'm all of a sudden now the ladies are going to show up. And then I got to 16, got a car, and this dinky little Ragalier 84 Cavalier that I had didn't attract any soul. I had not any girls were interested just because I had the 84 Cavalier. I want you to know wealth is kind of that way too. I even saw on Instagram, one of the people that we love interacting with, I don't want to draw it because I thought it was an interesting, but he was talking about his journey to starting a business, getting wealthy, and he had a baseline of ladies being interested in him. And he was showing that even though he's a multimillionaire now, the ladies still aren't interested. So I think there's a lot of correlations. We create these false things in our head. If we'll just have, if I'm depressed or I don't have enough friends, as soon as I get this, I'm going to have more. Money is just a tool, as the headline says. It's not the goal. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. You know your why, that you're actually building the life not just off the number, but off of what actually the money as a tool can do for you. So just don't skip that step. And that's actually probably a great segue into slide and step number 10 or number 10 is there is more to wealth than money. And what I wanted to really focus on, and this is something I always tip my hat to Bo at, is that if you can have a heart of gratitude and being generous, you'll go so much further, not only with your appreciation for life, but also what money is and is not for you.
Yeah, Brian, we were talking a lot in pre-show about around this idea around being wealthy is great, right? Like it's a great thing. It affords some opportunities and it allows you to do things maybe you weren't able to do previously in life. But when you think about like the stages and the levels of wealth, it goes past money. Like when you think about working up the wealth stages, when you go from stability to security to strategy, and you get to some of those higher levels, you start to get into financial freedom, which I want you to talk about. And then there's even a step above that. When you can recognize that, when you recognize that, again, and 9 and 10 are so interrelated that money is simply a tool that allows us to achieve our goals, and what's outside of it is so much more valuable than what the money itself is.
Well, I think while we're in survival and build mode, a lot of us, we focus our goals on really the level 4 on the 5 levels of wealth, which is the freedom. That's where you're doing what you want, you're doing it when you want, and you're doing how you want. That's what you're daydreaming about. Man, I'm going to own my life. I'm going to do it. But I am telling you, there is a step further. That's where we talk about step 5 on the 5 levels of wealth, and that is abundance. And abundance is more of who you are, what you value, and what gives you purpose. Because man, if you can turbocharge 4 and 5 together, that's where you're a world changer. That's where you wake up every morning, you're like, man, the world is getting better. I'm doing my part. I'm feeling fulfilled. And that's why I tell you, if you can work on that and have that understanding that money is that tool, but it's a tool that's going to require you to put some effort into knowing who you are, what you value, and how you are interconnected with the world that surrounds us and all the people and the relationships, it makes you so much better to understand how you can live in abundance. Because that's what I want to go back. I think we might have said it. I can't remember. But we were talking about abundance is actually the combination of wealth plus purpose.
That's right.
If you don't skip the equation and the steps, that's what's going to do it for you. And that's kind of what has built this entire enterprise. I started this as a passion project, Bo, to try to educate people. I wanted to have my own digital classroom, but I realized by just giving it away, it was creating abundance in people's life. And that's why we've titled this The Abundance Cycle. You come here for free. learn, apply what we're teaching, and grow these concepts till you reach a level of success that's beyond your imagination. And that's probably where your life's going to get complicated. You're going to realize you need to work with someone to help you be a co-pilot, because yes, you only get one financial life, only one retirement, one journey on this. We've done this hundreds, quickly approaching thousands of times. And that's what we want to be, your co-pilot, to help and make sure you do the best version of you.
If you can hold on to these truths, if you take them, maybe print them out. You know, I just came up with an idea. We should turn this into a deliverable. 10 truths about money. Let's put that in the hopper. You take these and you hold on to them. Let them be the things that keep you motivated on your financial journey. Remember, okay, there are ingredients to this, and I need to understand how debt works. And I need to remember that money is a tool. It's not the goal itself. And there's more to wealth. There's more to wealth than just the money part of it. If you can remind yourself of that, you're going to find that not only is the destination pretty exciting. I mean, the convergence of step 4 and 5 of wealth is the great, big, beautiful tomorrow. It's the thing that Brian talks about all the time. That's what you'll find, that it's not just the destination that's pretty exciting. The journey doesn't suck either.
The journey is the reward.
It's kind of fun. It's kind of fun working towards that and doing your annual net worth statement, seeing the fruits of your labor and your hard work being able to pay off. And I know for me and you both, getting to change the cycle. The circumstances from which we came out of are not the circumstances that we are in today. And that's a pretty amazing thing.
I think, just to get it outside of money, my dad passed away when I was in my 20s. He was in his mid 50s. And I instead of having anger and frustration from that, I actually felt an abundant heart in the fact that he had a life well lived. And I've always, that was my wake up call. I always say tragedy creates clarity. And that is what has made me so purposeful with my life. And that's what I hope, full circle, it is a balance of both the money, the purpose, that is the abundance. Get out there, implement, make sure you're respecting these 10 things we shared today. I'm your host, Brian Preston. Mr. Bo Hansen, Money Guy Team, out.